Usually when a movie franchise has reached its third installment, the quality level has plummeted. That's what happens most of the time. But sometimes, the rare instances, the third movie is not only great, but the best in the damn series. And here are some of those occasions. Starting at number 5, Return of the Jedi. All right, the third of the original Star Wars films. In my opinion, growing up, I always enjoyed Return of the Jedi more than A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. Growing up now, seeing it through more mature eyes, I've come to appreciate how great a film Empire Strikes Back is. All right, but Return of the Jedi still remains my favorite movie because, in my opinion, it's the most entertaining one. Yes, there were Ewoks in it, and a lot of people were pissed off at the fact that there were little teddy bear puppets running around, okay? Actually, they were people in suits. But I still love the hell out of that movie. You got the Endor sequence, you got the great final battle in space, which was spectacular and fantastic. You got Lando Calrissian being a general. You got that, I still think, the greatest saber fight in all of Star Wars, just for the level of tension, the stakes, the great dialogue that happens, and the conclusion, that being the saber fight at the end of Return of the Jedi. That entire build-up, third act, epic conclusion was fantastic. And in my opinion, that's where the saga ends. There are no sequel trilogies, so Disney can fuck off. All right. Coming in at number 4, I've got Die Hard 3, Die Hard with a Vengeance. All right. Now, in my opinion, this is not the best in the series, that being number 1. All right. But this is a very, very close second. All right. This is a brilliant series, started by being directed by John McTiernan, the guy who directed Predator, arguably one of the greatest movies of all time in itself, okay? And he comes in following Predator the year after, 1988, and puts out this gem of a movie, Die Hard, all right? And then you get a dodgy-ass sequel directed by Rennie Harlin, which is entertaining, but it's nowhere near the quality level of what a Die Hard movie should be. All right, and then years go by, and it's not till 1995 that John McTiernan gets back in the director's chair and he delivers us Die Hard with a Vengeance, the perfect sequel. This should have been number 2. We didn't need number 2 at all right? But he comes in there and he takes everything that's great about the original, expands it, all right? He connects it beautifully to the original by having the villain be the brother of Hans Gruber, and played brilliantly by Jeremy Irons, chewing up the scenery. But then even more scenery chewing is delivered by a brilliant Samuel L. Jackson. All right, and when you got a big personality like Bruce Willis there as John McClane, and you're going to introduce another personality to go head to head with him and to be his buddy and his partner in this film, it's got to be someone with as larger than life personality as him, and who else but Samuel L. Jackson, and he fits that role perfectly. And if you've never seen this movie, just watch it for the first scene alone. Holy, is that a controversial scene? But I tell you what, it's damn fucking hilarious, okay? And it probably, someone's going to try and cancel this scene and have it erased from history based on the shit that's going on at the moment. But I tell you what, it's well worth a watch. It's bloody gold, all right? Anyway, coming in at number 3, we got Back to the Future Part 3. Now again, I don't think this is the best in the series, the best being number 1. 2, I still love and enjoy. It's hilarious, all right? But it's not as good as 3 in my opinion. 3 is the second best film in a series and one of the greatest third movies in a series of films of all time. And I grew up watching 3 the most, and I enjoyed it the most. It wasn't until I was older that I watched 1 more and took more notice of how great the writing was in number 1. But number 3 is easily probably the most entertaining one in the entire series. It's hilarious. It's got such a great setting. You got Thomas F. Wilson playing Buford Tannen so fantastically. One of the greatest villains in any movie I've ever seen, even though he's hilarious at the same time. As when I was a child, I found him really intimidating. He played it so well. And as a kid, I had no idea this was the same actor who played Biff in the first 2 movies. No idea. That's how much he transformed into Mad Dog Tannen. And he owned that role, one of the greatest cowboy roles of all time. And that's, and 3 is also a great it's a great love story too between Clara Clayton and Doc Brown. Very heartwarming moments between him and Marty at the end. Got the ridiculous new time machine built out of a fucking steam train. It's just, there's nothing not to love. It's highly quotable, as are all the movies on this list. One of the prerequisites of a movie being one of my favorites is it's got to have great dialogue and it's got to be highly quotable. And this movie has got that in spades. It's a must watch. I love watching, people out of their time from the future going back to the past, knowing about technology and events, and the way Doc tells her about when the moon landing's going to be exactly from the year 1885. Fantastic movie. It's well written. I don't know why it gets shit on in this series, because it's one of the best. And I feel it's a brilliant third installment. Moving forward. Now, the next two movies are, in my opinion, the best in their series. That being that franchise that I'm going to talk about reached its peak in the third movie. All right, so coming in at number 2 is Army of Darkness, the third movie in the Evil Dead franchise. This movie is one of the funniest fucking things you'll ever see. Sorry for the swearing, I'm getting very animated here talking about how great these movies are, but Army of Darkness is bloody hilarious, all right? It mixes perfectly horror and comedy together to give you just a rip-roaring, super entertaining experience. It's highly quotable. It's still quoted by people who don't even know what they're quoting, all right? I've seen it in video games and in other movies, and I've just heard people in conversation quoting this movie and lines from it, like groovy and things like that. They got no idea what it comes from. It comes from this brilliant movie, if you've never seen it, Army of Darkness, from the early 90s, all right? The first two movies, and this is a funny genre that Sam Raimi gave us. In my opinion, this is the peak of his filmmaking. I didn't care that much for his Spider-Man films, but he started off with a straight horror movie, all right, with the first Evil Dead film. And then he pretty much redid the first movie, but added a big comedy element into it with Evil Dead 2. And I love Evil Dead 2. I don't care for the first Evil Dead. This is a weird franchise where it got better with each movie, right? But Evil Dead 2 is also hilarious. But it doesn't reach the hilarity and just genius writing of Evil Dead 3, which is so memorable, so quotable. The hero is an all-time iconic character now, Ash Williams, all right, with a bloody chainsaw on his arm and his boomstick sawn-off Remington shotgun in the other hand. Just, again, it's one of those, time traveler thing where someone from the future goes to the past. I love those. I love watching them, with their modern knowledge and modern technology interacting with the past, especially with the fact that he brought his car with him as well, and he retrofits it as a siege weapon later on, or to fend off a siege from the armies of darkness. And Bruce Campbell nailed this role, the role of his career. He never has to act again. He will always be remembered as Ash Williams. And he plays so brilliantly the scenes where he has to fight against himself. So memorable. And there's a few weird alternate scenes in this where the dialogue is there's different versions of this movie where the ending is different, the dialogue is different in certain scenes. So it's hard to keep track of which is a definitive cut and the director's cut and the alternate cut. But the one I saw was on VHS, and it didn't have the ending where he's lost in time and there's a worldwide apocalypse. It's I think the most well-known ending where he goes back to the S-Mart and takes on the zombies and then says, "Hail to the king, baby," and kisses his girl. Brilliant movie. Highly recommend. And in my opinion, easily the best in the Evil Dead series. All right. Now, number 1. And in my opinion, the greatest movie in the series and one of the greatest movies of all time. And that's Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. The third movie in the Indy series and easily the best. All right. The quality level of this series went from super high to Raiders of the Lost Ark to still very good with Temple of Doom. I still love Temple of Doom. It's a very dark movie. The whole monkey brains eating scene scared the absolute shit out of me as a kid and grossed me out like to no end. And then it reached its height in number 3, The Last Crusade. I absolutely loved the shit out of this movie. And then the franchise just died with frickin' Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. That was a dog shit movie, all right? Don't even bother. If you've never seen it, be thankful that I'm telling you not to watch it, because you'll save yourself from potentially ruining what was one of the best franchises of all time from the 80s. Anyway, and I hear they're making another one. Oh, God. Please don't let it be dog shit again. But The Last Crusade is so damn good, all right? And the fact that they brought in Sean Connery to play his father has got to be some of the greatest casting choice. It's got to be the greatest casting choice, one of all time, to have Harrison Ford, a young 40-something Harrison Ford in his prime, arguably, with grizzled older Sean Connery, arguably in his prime in his 60s. There was only like 12 years between them in age. And yet they played such a convincing father and son, because Harrison looked pretty younger than he did, and Sean Connery looked a bit older than he did, but he still looked great for his age. I remember all the women going nuts for him back then when he was in his 60s, thinking he was the best looking old man they'd ever seen. But he brought such a charisma to this role, and as Indy's father, and it was great how they wrote their characters to be opposites of each other. Indy to be the outgoing outdoorsman, and his father to be the intellectual, bookworm sort of archaeologist. Not really much of a field archaeologist. His son being the adventurer. And it was great. Just watching them play off each other was some of the best writing I've ever seen in a movie, dialogue-wise. The dialogue's brilliant, all right? And the Nazi villains were fantastic. That guy who played, oh man, I can't remember his name, but I think he's a British actor. The guy who says, and this is how we say goodbye in Germany, and then just, poof. Just brilliant writing, hilarious at the same time. And the fact that the whole premise is revolving around the Holy Grail, the most holy, relic in Christianity. And the fact that you had these, a Jewish writer and director, Spielberg, and Lucas, I'm not sure his ethnicity, but they wrote one of what I feel is the most Christian bloody adventure movies you'll ever see. Is strange, but greatly appreciated. I love the hell out of this movie. Always did, always will. And it had heartfelt moments. It was just an all-round perfect movie in every way, shape, or form. And there's not a bad word that can be said about it. The action scenes were spectacular. The dialogue was spectacular. The set pieces, the pacing. One of the best paced movies you'll ever see, with a brilliant climax in the Canyon of the Crescent Moon, which, I was able to later research and find out was the ruins of Petra in Jordan, which is one of the most spectacular temples carved into the side of a cliff face you'll ever see. Just amazing. The castle around Marcus Brody, Salah, John Rhys Davies, just brilliant. And the chase scene, the action set piece with the tank on the way to the Canyon of the Crescent Moon was spectacular. Alison Doody as the German Nazi double agent, she was great. Not just to look at, but she was great in the film as well. The chase scene with the speedboats in bloody Venice, it was great. Even that secret society that was protecting the Grail, those Christian guys that were chasing Indy, but really they were good guys. They were just trying to protect the Grail from falling into the hands of the Nazis. That was also a great subplot in the film. It is the best adventure movie of all time. There you go. There's another top of the list that it makes. And even seeing a young River Phoenix as young Indy at the start, that whole sequence on the train was spectacular and so memorable. And I love it. It's the best father-son movie I've ever seen. And best archaeology movie you'll ever see. And I don't know how they reach such a high level in the third movie. Because like I said, most of the time, you get that far into a franchise and the level of enthusiasm from the writers and director and just the quality level of the writing and all of that is usually just diminishing with each film. It's very rare. But Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade easily pulled it off. And even the Grail Knight at the end, that Knights Templar guy, he was fantastic. And the whole sequence where Indy's got to choose which cup to drink from. And stupid Donovan goes for the most elaborate, golden, beautiful, glorious chalice. And Indy's like, no, the cup of a carpenter. and he made the wise choice. So make sure you also choose wisely and listen to my video and like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment. Watch these movies. Thanks for watching. Take care. Be good. And don't choose poorly.